announcements. We have 14 so far. So Nick, I think we're already over that more than 10 boundary we were going to do for intros. Woo!
I'm going to wait to start the live, the closed captioning. It looks like it's recording. So remember, anything going on at this point is being recorded.
Excellent.
I'm going to go ahead and enable the closed caption. So just a reminder that it will begin to transcribe everything from this point. And we are right at 2 p.m. Just wanted to welcome everyone to this session, Plant the Seeds Early, Skills, Tools, and Connections for Early College Students. All of you in this session hopefully have had some familiarity with the platform and are comfortable with that. And at this, I will turn it over to our presenters, Faye and Nick.
Hey, everybody.
Yes.
Well, welcome to our session, and thanks for hanging in late into the afternoon or getting rolling early, depending on where you're coming from. I'm Faye Goodman. I'm the early college liaison at Central Carolina Community College for our Chatham County Early College. We're a 3-county system, and we have 3 early colleges. That's half my role here at the college. I also teach anthropology and critical thinking.
And good afternoon. My name is Nick Testa, and I work also at Central Carolina Community College. I'm the early college coordinator and also the Lee Early College liaison and advisor. And I also teach ACA 111 and 122 for the college here at Central Carolina.
Excellent.
And and if you would,
no, go ahead.
We were going to say, instead of introductions, we'd love to have everybody get a little feel for who we all are. So in the chat, we can do it that way as we get started here. If you don't mind putting your school, your role, and just a brief description of the students that you serve, that would be great. Give us a better idea of the group that we have with us today. We appreciate it.
It's nice to see so many people here.
I know. This is wonderful.
If you all don't have access to the chat, will somebody say that out loud? Because I don't see any responses yet.
Oh, there we go. Nope, they're rolling in now.
Oh, good.
Looking great. Thank you all for doing that. Oh, that's great. In and out of North Carolina. That's wonderful.
Nick, will you share some of those out loud? I don't seem to be able to see the chat on my end. I don't know why.
Yeah, of course. So we have, let's see, we have Melissa from Highland Community College in Illinois. And we have Amanda from Beaufort, or is it Beaufort? CCP and Early College Liaison here in North Carolina. And we have Dee Dee from Indiana, and Judy from Person County here in North Carolina, Executive Director of CTE and Early College and CCP. And we have Melissa from Garrett College in Maryland. Yeah, we're all over the place. This is wonderful. St. Cloud University. Christine, welcome. Raina from Administrator in New York City, where I'm from, up in New York. That's great. So thank you again all for introducing yourself. So the plan for today and what we hope that you get out of this, Faye and I are going to share what we call, the title was ACA 111. And that's a class, for those of you not in North Carolina, that's a class, specifically a college class that we teach directly to early college students. And we're lucky enough that Central Carolina allows us to have this class that we teach to early college students when they're freshmen in each of the early colleges at Central Carolina. So we're going to share a little bit about what that class is and what our goals are for that and what our students get out of it for early college. We're going to share our experience with the class so far. We've each taught it for a number of years now, thankfully, and we've had a lot of experience growing and being able to learn from what maybe worked and has not worked, and some of the strategies that we have found have worked. So we're going to share those. And ultimately, hopefully you guys walk away with some ideas and examples on how for your young, specifically early college students, but this could certainly help with young CCP students as well, as they're gearing up to start taking college classes. And that's the main goal really for this ACA 111 class is when they're freshmen, we teach them all the skills, we teach them everything that they need essentially from technology to resources at the community college so that they're ready. So when they start taking actual curriculum college classes, we want to make sure that they're ready and they're successful right from the start. And we are not experts on this. We always learn every single time we teach it, every class, we're always learning. So collaboration today is going to be a key component as we hear from everybody. We're going to do some breakout rooms a little bit and hear from everybody about, what you do, what's successful. And so we all learn and we can learn from everybody here as we walk away from this session.
Okay, so I'm going to jump back in. This is Faye again. At our school at Central Carolina Community College, pretty much every student that is pursuing a certificate, a diploma or a degree here is required to take ACA 122. That's college transfer success. And it is mostly about, kind of goal setting for your career and how are you going to navigate transfer. I think a class that's similar to that is pretty common at a lot of two-year schools. But we have this particularly interesting pocket of students, right, who are starting high school and almost immediately starting college at the same time. So what we're trying to do with this class, with ACA 111, which is subtitled College Student Success, but I often like to refer to as how to take a college class without totally blowing it. We are trying to build the students that are prepared to start taking college classes. So we're really focused in this class on building confidence in the different software systems they're going to need to navigate, in communication with folks at the college, but mostly in building connection with one another, to us as their advisors and sort of problem solvers, and to all of the resources we have available at the college. So when they get here, they've already got a bunch of the tools that they'll need for their curriculum classes. It gives us a chance to start knowing who they are, so we don't have to build that relationship after they're already rolling in classes. So we find that building this relationship early makes it easier to advise them. It makes it definitely much easier for them to come to us when they are having trouble. So it's been really useful for us. Not every North Carolina community college offers 111. 122 is a lot more common. And here at CCCC, we only offer this class for the early college students in specific, and we give it to them as a cohort model, right? So my whole incoming cohort of freshman students will have this class in their first year. I think I'm going to toss the ball back over to Nick.
And just to clarify, we want to make sure, because we know some of you that are not from North Carolina that might not be familiar with some of the lingo that we're referring to. An early college is a public high school where students come in. It's a 5-year program. Students come in and for free, their goal is to get their high school diploma and an associate's degree or some credential at the community college that kind of springboards them to their future, whether it's a 4-year school or into the workforce. So that's what the early college is, and that's specifically what we're referring to. And CCP is a term, Career and College Promise, that describes traditional high school students that are dual enrolled in their high school. So that's what we talk about will help both of them, both populations, but just wanted to clarify that these are the students that we're referring to. And as we segue into it, that's the population we're talking about. And, what we want in this class and in this model in general, because we know you might not be able to have specifically ACA 111, right? But you can set up something that's really similar to that. And it could be a class, it could be maybe little mini sessions that you have throughout the year or a semester at your school or institution. What we really want to do is, again, make sure that in that first day of their actual college classes, curriculum classes, whether it be a psychology or a history or a sociology, whatever it may be, they're ready, right? We want them to be able to open up Blackboard confidently and know how to do a discussion board, how to submit an assignment, how to use their college email and know to check it every single day, know how to send a professional email, using WebAdvisor. That's another program that we have specifically for Central Carolina, as well as Blackboard. Some might have Moodle or some other things, but ultimately that learning management system, making sure they're ready for it. And any other advising type software, anything else technology that they're going to need to be successful to college, we just want to make sure they're ready and on that first day. And whether it be, like I said, whether it be assignments, the discussion boards, the quizzes, anything like that, linking their assignments, that they have to make sure that they're submitting that successfully. We just want to make sure they're ready. And, a key part of that is making sure it's submitted on time, right? So we talk about the due dates. We know that high school and college are really different. We know that. They don't know that yet. So we want to make sure that they know how important that is and how strict it can be once they get to college, plus community college, and eventually if they want to go to a 4-year school. And, with that, it also comes, more independence, right? What are they going to need to be successful? So we talk a lot about that they're going to be on their own. They're not going to be with a high school teacher for an hour and a half every day, or an hour, whatever it is at your school. But, as we look at that, these are the key components that we know that's what needs to be successful in college. We want to make sure they know that. And so as Faye discussed, how do we build connections? Because that's important, as we know, right? These students are coming in, they don't realize how much they're going to have to depend on certain services and resources at the college, how they're going to need to really be comfortable, whether it's emailing or visiting instructors during their office hours. Now we have virtual office hours. So it's just an added component of making sure that they're ready to be able to successfully and effectively reach out for help when they need it. Because maybe they have not needed help maybe in their classes thus far in their academic career, right? We know that they will need help now. And so we got to make sure that they're ready to be able to do that, and they know how, and they're comfortable and confident, and they know how to effectively communicate, whether it's email or in person. So those are definitely some of the huge components of this that we try to emulate and we try to have them learn. And so those terms, office hours, accessibility, academic assistance centers, tutoring, right? These are all things that they might know, but they don't really know, so we got to make sure that they know, specifically for our college, with this ACA 111 class, we obviously cater a lot of that to our school, right? Because they're coming to us. But eventually, like we talked about with that ACA 122 class, as they get a little bit older and they're juniors, and they take that required ACA 122 class for their associate degree, that's where we connect the dots from what we talked about when they were freshmen, bring it back up, and then take it a step further when they go to transfer to whatever goals they have for after when they graduate. So,
I think that a lot of the stuff that students need to be successful in an early college is pretty concrete, right? It's a bunch of tools that they have to learn how to use and skills that they have to learn how to do, particularly that one about, there's no magic time at the end of the semester where you get to turn in all the work you missed, right? So that you can pass the course. But I really think the biggest part of this class is connection. What we know for sure about college completion is students are more likely to complete if they feel connected to one person at the college, right? More than one is great, but they have to have that one person to start with. So one of the things we're really doing in ACA 111 is we're setting ourselves up to be that one person and to introduce them to a whole bunch of other one people, right? So they can start to see folks at the college as human beings and as folks that they can go to with difficulty. So we're going to shift from who we're working with to a little bit of a group activity. So for folks that are already working with dual enrolled students or are moving towards offering some dual enrollment at their particular institution, we'd like you all to have some conversation with one another about challenges that young students face in our classrooms, right? Either seated or online. We're going to take about 6 minutes in small groups and have some conversation about this with one another. I think we had 22 last time I checked, and now we are up to, let's see, yep, still 20 some people. So I think we're going to break up into 4 groups. And I'd like you to do some brainstorming in your group. It'd be great if someone could take a few notes because we're going to report out about this. So brainstorm some challenges that young dual enrolled students face in our classrooms. That's either seated or online. And if you have some concrete solutions that you use to address these difficulties, it'd be great if you could share that in your group as well. So I'm going to pop everybody into groups. We're going to let you go for 6 minutes, and then we're going to bring you back to the main room. I will post the prompt in the rooms as soon as I can get the breakout room button to respond to me, which hopefully, oh, there we go. All right, so brace yourself. I'm throwing you out. Okay, I think it's going. Open all rooms. Nick, maybe if you stopped sharing your screen for a minute, that would help.
Yeah, of course.
All right, I don't know why it doesn't want to let me do it. But could you tap on breakout rooms and have them automatically assigned to 4 rooms? It is not working from my end.
See if that worked. There we go.
Yeah.
Unless people are just leaving. mess.
It works.
Mass
I
exit.
think people are going, so I think
Yeah.
you're good.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna pick one, Nick, just to head over to.
Okay. I wonder why it didn't.
It's probably because I'm host, but don't worry.
back again. Hey, everybody, welcome back from the group. Did anybody feel like that was not quite enough time to have a little discussion? I think a 50-minute workshop session is, you know, kind of tight. So, so here's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to share the whiteboard and break it up into 4 quadrants. And I'd like you all to share some of the things your group came up with, things that you found to be particular challenges for students, and also ideas you had that have worked really well. So give me just a second to get the whiteboard up. And maybe Nick, you could vamp for a second while I do this.
Gladly, yes. So we're going to talk just really quick. You know, it's nice to kind of know the not agenda, but kind of what we're going to talk about as we move forward. Because like Faye said, we only have 50 minutes. You know, we're going to report out here a little bit, and then we're going to segue into some strategies and specific things that Faye and I do and have done in our classroom that have been successful. Maybe some that have not been so successful that we learn from and we move forward with, but we will have very specific things that we think would help and ultimately could help really in any school in any way, right? Like we have this class, but it could, you know, there could be many sessions that could really, these things could be put into use.
All right.
Look at you go, Faye. So fancy.
Look at me. All right. So, so we should have, and maybe Nick, you could check this on your end. You should have the ability to write on the whiteboard. My group was group 1, right? So if you could share some of the things on the board that you talked about in your group, everybody should be able to participate in this, provided that it is working the way we expect it to. You see, if you click on the whiteboard tool at the top of the screen and then text, you should be able to type into a little box. Is anybody else able? Please say out loud if it's not letting you type into the box.
I don't think we can type in the box.
Okay. What about security? Allow students to let them annotate on shared content. It should work. All right. Okay. So
Right.
Since it doesn't seem to be working,
Figured out.
let us just, oh wait, somebody's typing. Yes.
Uh-oh.
And you want the tool that says text.
Okay, as long as I've been doing Zoom, I have no idea. I've never used this, so I guess I'm not figuring out where to find the.
Oh, you're totally fine. Would you like to just share some of the things that your group talked about instead?
We actually didn't get a chance where we're talking about challenges because we were so busy just learning about each other's what we were doing. But I'll share one that I have is with so I teach dual credit, and my students all use their school issued Chromebooks.
Oh.
And those are, I don't know anything about, I've never used a Chromebook. I know that I don't know anything other than the school issued, but not good.
Yeah, Chatham County, where my early college is a 1 student, 1 device county, and the device is a Chromebook. So I 100% feel your pain. I wish I had any concrete solutions to offer for that one.
I think, and everybody else and anybody else can jump in if they found something that's been useful. I know I've gotten really close with the IT person at Lee County Schools. I send messages probably once a week that says Chromebook doesn't allow this, it doesn't allow this, and they can figure out a way most of the time to give that access, right? It is not ideal because then students have to wait a couple days, and in the meantime, I just direct them to the library computers to make sure that, you know, the library is a good place for them to come anyway, but they need to come in if they need to complete or submit an assignment in maybe a program that a certain course offers. that tends to be the way to go temporarily until maybe Lee County Schools can figure something out to allow access, because a lot of stuff is blocked. And that's been an issue. So that's a really, really good example.
Y'all, since the whiteboard is being kind of technologically difficult, why don't you just put some of the things you discussed in your group into the chat? I'll make the whiteboard go away, and maybe we can discuss them a little better that way. I don't want this to seem torturous.
Okay, Faye, this is Judy, and in my group, I had April from Maryland and Brenda from New Jersey. And so we talked about our 3 challenges around classroom maturity and time management, plagiarism, and the parents' participation and involvement. And so what we saw with that, for me in Person County, I encounter with our students, especially those coming out of 8th grade and going into the 9th grade, is that those reminders from their college instructors, like, you know, when things are due and where do you find this resource, when a lot of them, all their information is in their syllabi. So just helping them to understand there's not someone who's going to always remind you of when are things due. And then with the plagiarism, of course, it's self-explanatory, them not understanding what that is. And then with the parent involvement, they felt like since the students are now entering this college setting, that they could back away as parents, but they're trying to, you know, inform the parents, you still need to be involved and have constant contact with your student to help them make sure they're getting things done. And so one of our solutions is that we provide an academic support for our students. So even though we do have the ACA 122 class, we do something in addition with them called academic support. So our 9th graders are all signed up for that so that they can get that additional support and helping them to do that. With the parent involvement, they sort of take a 3-prong approach with having the counselors, the staff at the early college, and just being in constant contact with the parents, reiterating that their involvement at this point is still important for their student. And then for plagiarism, doing workshops for the students so they'll understand what it means and the consequences for them doing that in school.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that. Does another group want to report out? I took some notes for our group 1, but I don't want to be the only one talking. I can do it if folks want me to. But...
I guess I can talk about our group said.
Great.
So in our group, we also talked about plagiarism, and Mr. Sutton was talking about how they have them go to the library, as freshmen, they go to the library and they get taught all about what plagiarism is and how to cite materials, and showing them where Grammarly is to teach them how to go in and craft their own things. So that was the first issue and the solution for what they talked about. And then the second thing was really getting students to know the difference between high school and college, and trying to remember the other person's name who was in our group, but I'm not seeing the name on my screen. But she was talking about how they do the ACA class also at the beginning of their college freshman career, so that they kind of learn what that difference is and what that means for the class, and that they can't turn in things late. And while even in the ACA class, they may remind them on more things, in college, you won't necessarily do that. And I said, we also do the same thing in our school. At the beginning of all the classes that I teach, we go over that. What is the difference between high school and college? And what does that mean specifically for this class? And then we even take it a step deeper and talk about metacognition, and how do you know when you know something and when you don't, and how to apply that to your own learning. Because while we all want to assume that every student is going to have the perfect teacher every time and that they're going to give them everything they need, we also know that that's not always true, based on learning styles, based on students' needs. And so teaching our students to advocate for themselves and where to go find resources when they're not getting all the information that they need for their teacher is something that we focus on also.
That's great. I think so I have ACA with my students every week, and almost every week we're doing the chart on the board. What is this thing like at high school? What is this thing like at college? You know, syllabi, due dates, tests, like all sorts of things, making that distinction. And I think a lot of times like they have to have the experience before they really believe us, right? So so part of it is practice as well. So that's two groups. Does another group want to share?
Yeah.
So in our group, we talked about maybe students would feel like they're kind of a separate population as opposed to being integrated into the university if they're coming on campus to learn. So one of our solutions at St. Cloud State was to include our PSEO students in what we call the Huskies First Four. So it's the first kind of the first 4 days of class, and they get to participate just like a regular student on campus in activities and orientation and all of those kinds of things. We welcome them onto campus as a Husky.
Right on.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Wow.
And I have, I think, maybe just a couple more things from that group. Folks talked about the difference in how much access high school students versus college students have to their information at different institutions, right? I know here at CCCC, we use a Viso as advising software. And so our students have quite, and also Blackboard. So students have quite a lot of access to their running grades, but I know that's not the case at every institution. That can also be a bit of a challenge for parents who are used to having whatever your high school's system of sort of granular information on grades and communication with teachers. If they're used to having that, it can be a big challenge for families as well as they are rolling into dual enrollment. Okay, so I think that's 3 of our groups. Should we go on to our 4th group?
I can, maybe collecting thoughts. I'll chime in really quick and just say that to echo some of the concerns that were brought up, with plagiarism specifically and time management. I know, I think it was Judy that said, having, or maybe Calvin from Judy, but about having the librarians at the community college come and be a part of that plagiarism discussion, among other, how the library assists the students as they get older and start taking college classes, right? That's a very similar approach that being able, like as liaison, specifically in early college, but again, with, high school advisors and traditional high schools too, as they try to advise their students and build a relationship, right? Similar to how we are able to do that when they're freshmen, teach them, they get to know us, they get to, associate us with college, us with the college classes and the resources that they can come to us, that we're on their side. The librarians can do the same thing. Librarians go in there immediately as freshmen and they talk to them about plagiarism as well as just how to use the library, because they do have access to it, just like a regular community college student. So building that connection immediately gives them, even though they might not have to go into that college library right away when they're taking high school classes, they still can, but down the road, you obviously know they're going to have to. And so they have that relationship already, so I think that's a great one. And then time management, we might get into this here in the next couple of minutes here. We could probably all talk a lot about this. I know, oh my goodness. I know, speaking of time management, it's 2:37, but it's what we tell them, and we can put it right on the board for them to see when they're freshmen. Here's your high school schedule right now. Okay, when you're a junior or a senior, maybe depending on your early college and how it's paced out. I know at Lee Early College, the juniors are basically like half high school, half college. And then as they slowly transition into all college, but it's like, here's what high school is, here's what it's going to be. Look at all this free time. This is not free time.
Free time.
Right? This is not to hang out or to go home or to work, right? This is not job time, right? So some students might have, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 10 to 11, Tuesday, Thursday, 9:30, 10:45. What are you going to do with the rest of the time? And, if they have an online class mixed into there, how are we going to organize that, right? In one way that helps some, it doesn't help everybody, but helps some, they look at it as a seated class where we say, okay, listen, Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays from 1 to 2, you are free. That's your online class right there. You go in at 1 o'clock, you find a place, it's going to be there those 3 times, those 3 hours a week. You probably need more, but at least it's a start to know that you have that dedicated. So you're not worrying all the time about when you're going to do this or thinking, when am I going to work on this? That helps a little bit, kind of showing them that that's not free time, but also that they can, plan that time that's not actual seated class.
Yeah.
that can help.
I think helping them, I also spend a lot of time, particularly in the first semester that students are in full-time college classes. I spend a lot of time with students helping them to plan their week. You know, why don't you drop by and we'll make a plan, you know, when those weekly assignments are due. Let's make a plan for what you're going to work on each day. It can seem like such a big project that just helping them to break it down into smaller steps can be really, really useful. Okay.
Can share my screen again.
Yeah, so now I think we're going to move into some of the things we do that you might want to try. And they're things that have worked well for us.
Yeah, and this is, you know, we know, especially younger students and students nowadays, we got to keep it active, keep it interesting, for lack of a better term, right? Know that we got to meet them where they are in terms of technology, or just keeping it fun, making sure they know why they're there and what they're doing and how this is going to connect and how they're going to need this. That's always, and you know that, I mean, you guys all know that too. That's always a goal and always something we try to do every time, every class. So, and virtually made that even more difficult and more interesting last year. And it might not be the last time we do it, you know, so it's trying to now think of it in that added layer. So yeah, Faye, I'll let you talk a little bit about what you do.
All right.
With some of these competitive ideas.
All right, so I'll share some of the things that I do in my class. So I have basically all of these different cohorts. Students come into the early college just as freshmen, and so they move through as cohorts. And so with the early college in general, I tend to pit different cohorts against one another whenever possible. And I start this way back when they're freshmen, where I divide the class into teams. One of the first activities we do is they vote on a set of 3 that they're going to name their teams after, right? So we've had, I don't know, 3 SpongeBob characters, and I think last year it was a right isosceles and something triangle. I split them into teams and then give them opportunities to work for extra credit using those teams, which can be useful for like connecting to them to one another, but also they're sort of naturally competitive. So it grabs them where they are in their video game playing brains and connects them to the material a little bit more. Some other things that I do that have worked really well in my class. Anybody else, give me a yes in the chat if you have trouble getting your early college or other dual enrolled students to respond to email. Going once, going twice. I see a lot of all caps, right? So, you know, they don't want to check their email, but they really need to. That's the one main way that instructors are going to get a hold of them if they need to. And it's the way that the college disseminates information. So even though email is not their favorite thing to use, they really got to figure out how to do this. So since I have them in class in their first year, I train them to check their email by regularly putting announcements up in my Blackboard classroom at uneven intervals that says, if you see this within 12 hours or 24 hours or 17 hours, and you send me a funny GIF or you send me a joke by email from your college email, I'll give you extra credit for the class. So that's been super useful for getting them trained to check that email regularly. Let's see what else is on here that's mine. We do an online and seated scavenger hunt to teach them different things on the campus that are really useful for them to do. Oh, I just did a really great one that I'm super excited about. So I have 120 students that all need an advising appointment with me. And so what I did this year was I told the students that the first cohort that had all their advising meetings made, I'd bring them homemade cookies. Instead of waiting a whole month for everybody to make their appointments, we got them all made in 7 days. So that was super useful. What else do I have for me? I like to play Jeopardy with my students to see if they've retained the information, particularly stuff that they're going to need to know about these distinctions between high school and college. What about you, Nick?
Yeah, going back to the email thing, because again, it's so important when we just talk about the simple but essential communication idea and making sure they're checking their college email every single day, at least hopefully every day. You know, unfortunately, you got to incentivize, right? So I've done where, you know, they know that at random times, it could be anytime, I can send an email that just says first 5 to respond or first 10 to respond, or some it's just like, hey, respond within the next 2 hours. And then they can come get a little prize, just something small that, you know, if they're checking their email for that, you know, that's okay. But at least that now they know they might see a message from their instructor or from us, because we know everything we send them is really important. There's nothing more frustrating than walking by a student's computer and seeing all of your emails still in bold. It's like, that's great. So that's definitely one thing. I know that going as far as doing a contest, this was more virtual, but we did a contest where this was last year when they were all virtual. Every Friday, we would email out a trivia question that was, the answer was basically something they needed to know virtually. Where would you go if you know, your password is expired, or you can't remember it and you need to reset it immediately? Answers like that help them, but it's also fun. And, you know, the first 10 that respond correctly, they then get to propose a dare that a teacher at the early college would do. And then we'd videotape it. You know, it could be dumping water on your head, or, you know I had to dress up as a clown. It was just wild things. But again, certain extents you have to go to sometimes. But it unfortunately, that's kind of how it is sometimes you have to incentivize them. I know that Faye and I both, and other schools I'm sure might do this at some point. I bring in upperclassmen that, you know, tell how it is, right? Mr. Testa is saying this, or Ms. Goodman saying this, right? This is really how it is. It's not just them talking about it because it's the right thing to say. This is really how it is. So that really helps, both in ACA 111 as freshmen and as juniors, right? So when freshmen, you know, you can have sophomores that are, you know, just off being freshmen come in, or you have seniors that, you know, tell them, you know, what would you know, or what would you like to have known when you were a freshman? This class gives them the platform to do that for us, and that's really helpful. So, and then as juniors, you know, you have the graduating seniors come in and, you know, really help in that regard too. So that's a really good strategy. That's really helped us, just because, you know, they hear it straight from the students. We have a review. Yeah, thanks. We have a review Kahoot quizzes on here. Again, that's just something that students love Kahoots. And if Kahoots have to guide a conversation, that's been really helpful. Sometimes, you know, it gets out of hand with me sometimes, and, you know, you got to steer them back in if they, you know, get it wrong or they're focused only on winning. You know, it's just a natural thing, but you have to try to guide the conversation using those Kahoot quizzes. And review is at the end. You know, the last class could be, hey, what did we learn in ACA? And students have to create their own Kahoot quiz and say, here's what we learned. And then all the students take it at the end. So it's a few quizzes in a row, but it really drives some of the main points home in more of a fun way. So
I think I'm going to wrap us up and take us home.
Yeah, just and two more quick things. I know this. I forgot this last slide. Another main thing that we do, and this class allows that to happen, is comparing a high school and a college transcript. We print out a sample high school transcript and then a college one. We compare them so they know exactly how everything is going to be affecting them, and knowing that they're building a GPA immediately, high school and college, and what that means and why that is so important. So that's another activity that we do in there that really helps them figure out a weighted versus unweighted GPA, something like that. So simple, but it's so important that they need to understand and what the difference is, because just like they have 2 emails, they have 2 transcripts, and they really got to know what the difference is and which one is, you know, geared towards what and what's going to be needed with those. So again, that's another really important one that we spend a lot of time on, that really helps them.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right. So we have just a couple of minutes left. I want to apologize. The shortness of a 50-minute presentation means that we didn't really get as much time to interact with the information in the chat as possible. But I know that the recording is going out from this, so I hope that folks will be able to get some good ideas from other folks too. Nick, can you forward the slide? There we go.
Yep,
so no, you're fine. So before we leave here, I just want to say this is what we're trying to teach them in 111, not the content of a college class, right? The other faculty instructors are going to do that. What we are trying to do is pre-build as though they are made out of Legos, right? An early college student that actually already has the tools and skills and connections they're going to need to be successful, right? Like even if they don't remember that they know that thing, often when something comes up later in their dual enrollment, they're going to say, oh, I remember we talked about that in a little bit in ACA. And then they talk to fellow students and they sort of get back to the place of knowing what they don't even remember that they learned earlier. Everything we can do to make them feel more connected to the college makes them more likely to succeed. So that's our big job. That's our big job with 111, right? Teach them how to take a college class without totally blowing it. If you are interested in sharing more ideas to help dual enrolled students succeed, particularly if you work with early college students, because in our experience, if you are the person who does early college, maybe you are the only one at your school, right? So we don't often get a lot of chance to share information with one another. Please feel free to send us an email. We would love to be in more contact with you. And Nick's going to bring up our contact information here on this last slide. It is 2:49. I want to thank everybody so much for coming to join us. I wish we had had just a little more time, but it was lovely to spend this time with you today. Nick, can you bring up our contact information?
Yes. And like I said, and again, to echo Faye, thank you so much. And hopefully walked away with even, in the short time, just 1 or 2 pieces of things that hopefully help you and can move forward in terms of getting our students ready for when they step foot in that college class for the first time, they are ready.
Yeah. It was fun sharing some knowledge with all of you all today. Thanks so much for coming. And we're done in time.
Right. And 2:50.